Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 468, and today we're doing battle with Vayne Jarvan. And so there's a lot of flavors of Demacia Freylord running around right now. There's a bunch of Galio decks with Formidables and Balin in it. The more popular version of this deck running around includes Gnar over Vayne, but all of these decks have a very similar kind of idea in that we're going to play a little bit of stat boosting, typically the Omen Hawk, the Darkened Spear, or the Glacial Saurion. It's a little bit of a different package with the Formidables, but they do some of the same stuff with the Durand Sculptor and Balin. And then we're going to look to overwhelm our opponent with our stat advantage and overwhelm them with overwhelms. And so the idea that we're mainly going to be pulling off is if we're able to just get a single +1/+1 onto our units tend to just be bigger than our opponents. And so we're putting our opponent in a space to where they either have to interact with our unit with one card and not kill ours, which is going to allow us to build up to a very big board, which Warden of the Tribes just loves to see, or the opponent's going to have to spend multiple cards to take down a single unit. And so if we get a +1/+1 onto a blocking Badger Bear, very tough to kill with a single card. It's probably going to take 2 or even 3 cards just to get it off of the board. And so that's the kind of core idea that you're going to see across a lot of these Freylord Demacia style decks. But I've really pushed away from Gnar for a couple of reasons. I have this real love of the things that we can do with Cataclysm and Tumble. There's just so many combos within this deck to where you can Cataclysm and Anaka from the Darkened Spear to get the additional unit coming out off of the attack. You can Cataclysm or you can tumble a Ranger Knight Defector to get the sort of pseudo scout attack that's going to give you a rally and let you attack again. Or you can do the thing to where you say Cataclysm your 10/10 Warden of the Tribes into your opponent's 1/1 unit, overwhelm for 9, and then get to attack again for another big chunk of damage. And so I just really love all of these synergies and all of these combos you get out of the Cataclysms and out of the tumbles from Vayne that you don't quite get when you're playing Gnar and when you're out here playing single combat. And so I will also admit I'm looking to use Gnar in a different Freylord deck. We'll be covering off on that in the upcoming days. But with this Demacia Freylord deck, I just prefer Vayne to Gnar as it is anyways. The other kind of things I want to call out with our deck are, number one, I see a lot of different usages of Warden of the Tribes in terms of how many subtypes you're going to play. And the question I have to ask is, how much is enough, right? Are you really happy with +3/+3? That's very easy to do. You can just play an elite, you can play a bird, you can play one other subtype. Do you really feel like you need to get up to 5 and 6 bonuses on the Warden of the Tribes to make it feel effective? I don't think that that's the case. I think for the most part, you're able to play this kind of board control game with the +1/+1 stat bonuses from the Omen Hawks and the Darkened Spears and the like. Have your units just survive because they're just a little bit bigger. And then once the Warden gives out like a +3/+3, you're just going to outright win the game anyways. And so if you feel the need to actually have those giant bonuses, I feel that that's kind of tied in to just including bad cards in your deck. And so you're trying to say, oh boy, I have to hit every single subtype in the game so my Warden of the Tribes can give out +6/+6. I think that that's kind of a function of just playing those bad cards anyways. I think if we just play good cards in our deck, we're happy enough with the Warden providing just a small bonus. The other thing I want to call out with this deck is the top end. You can see here we are playing everyone's favorite combat trick in Battle Fury. But the things that I have to kind of say about this are you have basically 2 big options in this style of deck. You'll see a lot of Champion Strength. You'll see a lot of Buried in Ice. But to me, I don't want to play Buried in Ice because it's very reactive, right? I feel like we should be the aggressor. We should be the attacking player in the game. And within those spaces, you just don't really need to be playing Buried in Ice. I don't want to play a reactive spell. I don't want to be in this spot to where I have to be like, oh no, I have to just sit back and block and hope that this board shapes up in a way to where I can Buried in Ice and then I can just crash in the next turn. I don't think playing towards those style of advantages is really worthwhile. And I also don't like doubling up on just the really big spells along with Warden of the Tribes. The second thing is I am a huge fan of champion strength, but again, I don't think it's quite necessary in this deck. I think if you're playing formidables, if you're playing Balin and Galio, you have to play champion strength. You can't have these big attempts to end the game to where you attack with like 60 power of formidables and then your opponent goes, okay, cool, block. And then they take like 6 damage and you don't actually get the chance to kill them. You have to play rallies in that style of deck so that you can kind of come in and close out the game. But since we already have this big massive overwhelms with the Warden of the Tribes and the Saurions and potentially generating some overwhelm equipments from the Innovative Blacksmith, it's just, you don't really need it since you tend to be able to overwhelm through the end game anyways. And then if we're going to be overwhelming through the end game, Battle Fury plays fantastically in that kind of space. And so I'm a big fan of including Battle Fury here. And then it's another card that just ties in fantastically with Tumbles and ties in fantastically with Cataclysms. If we, like, say, Battle Fury a unit, attack, deal an absolute ton of damage, opponent doesn't get the kill, and then we say LOL Tumble and get to attack with that unit again. Feels very good. And so that's it. That's the deck we're doing battle with today. I checked in on the pay-to-win price, and that's how you know this is a good deck, right? Everything in here is already premium. Don't have to pay up on anything in here. Feels good. Feels good, my dudes. Let's go ahead and jump on in, see if we can't get some good games in. Ooh, feels so good. Like, I feel kind of dirty after playing all of that, playing all of that Nora over the past weekend for me and then into the previous video. It feels good to get out here and just play some big-ass units and say, okay, it's time to attack. Here they come. So it's been so refreshing. I really enjoy attacking with these giant bros. And so I will also mention, I think there's a Mastering Runeterra event coming up this weekend. I didn't entirely touch in on the reason we're not playing Gnar. A, I think Vayne is just better in this deck, but B, I'm also looking to play Samira Gnar, Warden of the Tribes, in that event. And so looking to just include him somewhere else and not necessarily have it here. And so with this start, I want a little bit more early game. We're up against Samira Janna. It's not a deck that usually comes out at you super aggressively. They tend to play Samira and then ramp up on like turn 4 or turn 5. And so we don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to keep a 3-drop in this space. But I want to find something else in the early game so we aren't just like banking mana until turn 3. Looks like that's what our hand is going to do anyways, but it's not a super ideal start to have things go that way. All right, we'll bank it up. Bank it up. Bit of a bummer of a start here. Just plays into the opponent's strategy so well. All right, now Omen Hawk coming to the party. He says, I got you, fam. I know I'm a 1-drop, but I'm just going to turn up super late. So it's kind of an interesting space here. We do have a bit of an advantage over this Samira being able to Cataclysm into her, but I think I'm fine with this in the sense we can double Badger Bear, and then I'd prefer to save these Cataclysms for Janna. It really helps limit the opposing deck's ability to pop off if the cards they draw post Janna aren't all reduced, right? They're going to be able to play their birds on the cheap, they're going to be able to play their quick attackers on the cheap, but we can hopefully limit the remainder of their spells from that point forward. So he doesn't go Janna here. He goes a little bit more defensive. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Mystic Shot or something come in on the Badger Bear. And then I would like to just Cataclysm away this Samira. I want opponent to maybe spend a little bit of mana before we go for it. It would be pretty sweet if he doesn't have like a combat trick to boost the Samira. But I think this is still going to be okay. Very tough to actually deal 4 damage. I guess if he has a combat trick, we aren't super upset. Like, he can still just Mystic Shot down the Badger Bear. But, you know, it feels like I want to win, you know? I want our units to get into combat and not die. Something coming in. It's all the same. If it's a Mystic Shot or whatever, we're fine. Okay. So we can start getting fairly big on board here. The opponent hasn't done any draw twos up to this point, so going to be paying full price for everything. What I like to kind of equate this Samira Janna deck to is it does a lot of stuff like you see coming out of the what's it called? Like Nora decks of the past, as to where they're able to just get these gigantic walls of units on the board. So you have to be able to kind of overwhelm through those kind of things. Just the difference is they're so good at attacking, to where the Janna units typically were not. Or I'm sorry, the Nora units typically were not. So do we want to go Frostcoat Cub? The way that we're going to be doing this is we're most certainly playing Saurion next turn, which is going to be turn 6. Then we can play Frostcoat Cub on Overwhelm side on turn 7, and then on our turn 8, we'll be trying to finish off the game with Warden of the Tribes. And so I think I want to hang on to the Frostcoat Cub. The question comes down to now do we want to say get the Sandsworn Amulet on board, or do we want to Omen Hawk for this next turn? Maybe we just go ahead and Omen Hawk now, and then we see what turns up. We're going to be taking some time on this next turn and not open attacking, and so maybe we actually want to put the Sandsworn Amulet onto the Saurion here. So he is getting a little susceptible to the slow spell. Like, what's that one called? Lightning bolt. There's so many lightning things out of the opposing deck. I'm trying to decide if we want to actually put the amulet on the Saurion. We probably do. Like, if he plays a random 3/2 here, and we're not going to get the free attack in with the Omen Hawk, it's not going to feel very good. Now it takes a lot of work to take the Saurion down.
Do the kids still doing surf back in Shurima?
So with this, I think we can just pass. Right? We've lost out on our Overwhelm. We're building up to the Warden of the Tribes. I don't think we need to push this guy in right away. We can just take it a little bit slow. Now look at this. We're starting to pick up these 4/4 Omen Hawks just ready to party. And so I think we're still good. Like, let's get this Omen Hawk down. It says I'm here to block. You gotta spend a spell if you want to take me down. All right, there's the Frostcoat Mother. Next turn we'll play the Warden of the Tribes. It's up to 5. I mean, we didn't try too hard. We didn't play a bunch of shitty cards to get the Warden of the Tribes up to 5. We haven't played Cultists this game. We haven't played Poros this game. And it's still just really nailing the bonuses. And so, feels pretty good.
Always got what I wanted. Now I gotta find what I need.
Perhaps the answer lies in others.
And it's just, even if we don't finish the game off this turn, which we should, you know, given the kind of state of our board with the Saurion and the Mother and the Warden of the Tribes all having Overwhelm. But, oh, this is going to feel bad for you next turn, my dude. But even if we couldn't, this is another one of these spots to where rolling into turn 9 and being able to Cataclysm and being able to Vayne tumble one of these giant Overwhelm units helps you finish off these games. Is like, you know, say we got into this spot to where we only have, say, one Overwhelm unit, and opponent quicksands a different Overwhelm, we may not be able to lethal on that turn, and so I really like having all of those tumbles to help fight through the madness there. All right, though. GG, well played. On to the next one. How often do you all push that skip button? You know? I don't know. I think I have this habit from playing Hearthstone to where I just click. Like, I click a ton. I just click everything on the board. And that used to be what you do in Hearthstone. Hearthstone's so fucking boring. You have to spend half the game just sitting there not doing anything. And so you just click a bunch of stuff on the board. And so I typically just sit here the entire time throughout my gameplay just clicking. And so whenever I see that skip button pop up that they just added in the new patch, I'm just kind of like, I'm already clicking, my dudes. We're already fighting our way through. I don't think I need it. I don't think we need to go here. But all right, what are we getting into here with Lysandra Samira? And so I'd like to kind of send back both Vayne and Sarion. It's not a terrible start having the Omen Hawk into Darkened Spear, and then just boosting the next unit that we're going to pick up. And so, interesting pickup with the Broadwing turning up, though. Like, I don't want to get the Darkened Spear locked in on the Omen Hawk, but I also am really excited to just be giving our next unit +2/+2. So let's take it this way. Let's go ahead and load up the Omen Hawk, juice up the next guy on top of our deck, and hopefully we can find a way to just throw this thing away a few turns from now. Ooh, all the spears. Okay.
What do you seek and what do you offer?
Just gonna be some truly massive units on top of our deck. It's gonna feel good, man. J4 picking up all the stats. So I'm a little curious what we're getting into here. Lysandra Samira, is this the Atakahn deck? There's been some people pushing for the going for the big units, but having Atakahn be your top end. And I think that's what this deck is doing. I see this deck and I'm like, how much like removal do we have to worry about? And I'm typically thinking in terms of like Talia Lysandra, where they're going to have, cool, he's giving us the weapon back. They're going to have things like Blighted Ravine, and they might play things like Buried in Ice. I don't think we're running into that here, but I honestly don't know. Look at these massive poros. Oh my gosh. Feels good. Another thing to watch here, what we're actually going to be doing, I'm going to add this Lonely Poro to the board, but we can cycle these Darkened Spears onto the other Broadwing so that we get the stats back. Give it a little bit of heal on this turn to where we can't really spend a bunch of mana. Okay, so we come in for 9. J4 hitting the board. Got to see how opponent can react on this next turn. It's like I really want to be in the space to where we're kind of presenting open attacks. I just don't want to give him the chance to respond, but you have the chance to go big here. We're going to have the mana on this next turn to play the Frostcoat Cub in the Mother form, and then Cataclysm. And so we can't get the KO through Anaka, but who knows what Anaka's gonna serve up here. Oh, fuck, are you kidding me? Oh, wow. Wow, that's what we're dealing with today, huh? You gotta be kidding me. Fucking okay. We had the lethal in hand, but I guess RN Jesus is out there bestowing the blessings upon our opponents. Insane. Insane. Anaka into Atakahn. All right, well, you know what we always say in those kind of spots. I didn't win the Powerball here recently, but maybe it's time for opponent to buy a ticket. I don't know. We've got some new viewers rolling around now that the new patch is out. New people always turn up with the release of the new sets. You can let me know how you feel and what you think in terms of this. If you're being super lucky, or if your opponent's being super lucky, you have two choices, right? You either have to say, okay, this is it. This is my day. My luck is at its peak. I'm running prime luck at the moment. Gotta buy some lottery tickets. Gotta win that Powerball. Gotta get the bag. Or the flip side of the equation, you say, oh man, I've been so lucky. I better not do anything else today. I burnt all my luck on a rando ladder game. my luck has been spent. I won't be seen any further. I won't waste anything else on the day. And so I'm curious how opponent feels about it. If they're really happy to spend all of their luck in that moment, or if they're going to be purchasing lottery tickets later. But back into the game, we're up against Teemo. With this, I want maximum interactivity. Our deck doesn't actually have a ton of it, right? We're not playing Fleet Feathered Trackers. We're only playing Cataclysms as our removal spell. And so I wanted to do two things here. I wanted to hang on to Cataclysm just to make sure we have something, right? As we may face down a Teemo. I want to make sure that he can't just run hog wild on us 3 turns in a row. So I kept the Cataclysm, and then I wanted to find some of our cheaper plays, ideally picking up Broadwings, which we managed to do here, but whatever we can to make sure we have something to interact with that Teemo. That's the biggest problem space we can run into in these games, is him just going unchecked. So that worked out nice. We're fine. See if he's going to have a 3 damage removal on our Broadwing. He's thinking on it hard. Guess not. Well, he might have it and just chose not to play it, but I would imagine if he wanted to interact with the Broadwing, he would have done it before he attacked. Before we attacked, I should say. Mr. Thrift. So how much are we willing to just bank here? We can take 1 Teemo hit. That's not that big of a deal. Let's just go ahead and start putting dudes on the board. There is a thought to maybe just come in and pass here. Taking the 3 bank into the next turn and keeping the Cataclysm mana up, but that doesn't strike me as spectacular. If we take 1 Teemo hit here, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And he has no Teemos. Nice. Then I'm leaning towards the combat reel. We should find plenty of ways to spend the spell mana. Like, as soon as a Vayne turns up, we have infinite spell mana to spend the rest of the game. Let's just go ahead and take the reel. If we'd picked up like a Fearsome or picked up an Overwhelm, I would have been much more happy with those. But I think we'll find the mana to use with the Blacksmith here. Now, how much do we care about Mr. Thrift? I'm pretty okay with just letting him hang out on board. The downside with this is we have to deal with him again, right? And so I do like keeping the Broadwing around as just a way to come in and interact with the Teemo, but we are giving him that chance to protect himself later. Where's this going? Is he shooting Omen Hawk? He's shooting the Broadwing. Okay. I'll protect. I don't particularly care that Mr. Thrift went back, but again, I like having that little bit of interactivity here. Overwhelm would be so choice on this board. We can still do some stuff. We can Darken Spear and then start to Cataclysm. Or it's like if we really want, we can play the Cataclysms off the Blacksmith to get that mana back. Kind of doing a little bit of 2 mana Cataclysming, if you will. What if he's just going to drop Sump Monument? Do people still play Sump Monument these days? It's such a tough one to really kind of build your whole strategy around with the Explorers. But I mean, I think it's still a valid card to consider in this format. It's still very good at ensuring you an additional 2 or 3 turns. Thinking hard on it. Did he give up? Did he say, "Bust, you've been booming me too hard"? Or are we just using the entirety of the rope today? Like, it's pretty tempting to Cataclysm into the Chump Wump with an Omen Hawk, just to try and get the unit off the board, but that fails pretty hard if opponent has a removal spell. It seems like he's just gone. All right. Well, I'm gonna do it at this point, I guess. if he's not here, then we can just present lethal. I guess we can present lethal with the Broadwing turning up anyways. There he is. He's back. He's returned. Oh, let's not go for the big one. Let's go for the little one. The thing I'm interested in here is we can get the Anaka card back in hand, and then we can just replay it. So I'm fine to trade off the Broadwing at this point. But the thing to worry about here is if you're doing the challenges of the Broadwing, right? If we went after the 4/4, and then he said, "LOL, watch this, I got a, watch this, I got a burn spell in hand," would come out and cause us some problems. Sure. Well, we definitely got some big stats up on top of our deck. We got the Anaka Cataclysm for 2 turns from now, or if we pick up like a Saurion on this turn, LOL, we did. We get that chance to just Cataclysm now. So, feels good. Alright, a bunch of cards we don't care about rolling in. Just gonna go ahead and take the lethal right now. Telling y'all, I don't know why people they don't play as much Cataclysm as we do, but you know, just me with all the good ideas, I guess, right? It's just me. Old Bust is the only one doing it. All right, GG. On to the next one. So yeah, like I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure there's a Mastering Runeterra event coming up this week. Like, I don't know. I feel like they haven't been doing their hardest in terms of advertising them. That they usually do it. It's like the set comes out and then we play for a weekend, and then the not seeing it on the website. And then so it's like the set comes out and then we play it for a week. And then the next week, the Ruthless Rumble's here, and then the Mastering Runeterra event's the same weekend. And then the weekend after that's the Runeterra Open. And so I got a little confused. I told the wife that I needed this weekend to play the Runeterra Open. And so she just planned to go do a bunch of wife stuff, and I was going to sit at home and play video games all day. And now that I've kind of thought back on it, I'm just going to have to play video games next weekend too. And so ain't nothing wrong with that, I guess, but actually getting to play in this one. All right, so not entirely certain what Freylord PNZ is here. I would assume that this is some kind of elementals deck. I don't really know what they're doing here, but I would assume it's like I don't know, Wrath of the Titans kind of thing. Whatever that big giant spell is, probably has Escalia running through here. It's just what I kind of envision Freylord PNZ trying to do with no champions. We're not playing Eternal today. This isn't going to be concurrent timelines coming at us, and so a little bit bamboozled. The game break? Uh-oh. Alright, we're back in. Seems like we're here. Why does it say okay? It's our attack token, but I can't push units in? There we go. Jesus. Small indie company, as they say. Small indie company. But, you know what it looks like we're doing here? We're building up into a Battle Fury, and picking up the Petricide Broadwing really assists with that. And so, might just be able to zing him next turn. Let's see. How do we feel about that? Let's add the first Broadwing and see what happens. That's fairly aggressive, just going that hard. I would assume that this deck is probably going to have like a bunch of flash freeze kind of cards in it. And so let's just continue to build up board. He can't play Buried in Ice on this turn. And so We should at least be kind of forcing him to interact here. Let's take Combat Reel. Give us some bonus health if he's going to try and avalanche us or something. That's a lethal. We got a surprise +4 damage in hand with the Elixir of Irons. We gotta see if that doesn't give us a bit of an edge. Make him spend something else. He can get out of it. He can Harsh Winds the Omen Hawk to prevent 1 point of damage, but you got to admit that doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel good. All right, yeah, not entirely certain what that was there. It had some ramp in it. I think I'm probably pretty accurate in what was actually happening in that game. He was playing some kind of elementals deck. Probably had Escalia. Probably had the elemental Feel the Rush. Interesting. I think that deck is kind of close to being good. It's like I have huge desires to play those cards with Ashe, but I feel like the deck is lacking a challenger, right? It's like I see all these elemental cards that I want to play with Ashe, like all of the flash freezes now having the elemental tag attached to them. And then it's like, okay, well, the immediate answer is just to play Ashe LeBlanc. But there's nothing within Ashe LeBlanc that can take advantage of all those elementals. And so, I don't know. Maybe one day something will turn up. All right, though. Up against Lurk. Let's get rid of the Saurion. We have a reasonable early game stack of units here. I kind of like keeping the Darkened Spear. It's not a great attachment to the Omen Hawk on turn 2, but it's, you know, doable. And then on future turns, being able to gain a couple more points of health with the Blacksmith feels kind of nice. But Lurk is one of the more problematic matchups that we can run into. They're very good at coming down and like we don't want to trade 1-for-1, right? We want to boost our units with Omen Hawks. We want to boost our units with the equipments and stuff. And then if they're just kind of like, here's a 9-2, you know, we don't have a great way to get out in front of that. And so it can be a little bit of a stressor. But we'll see. See what turns up. Not opposed to quick attack turning up for the innovative Blacksmith. That can be a quite good one for our Cataclysms to use. So we'll see if that makes an appearance. Nothing wrong with a little quick attack challenge. But yeah, Lurk, the #1 deck from last season. Insane. It's just because nobody was playing Standard, but if you would go to runeterra.ar on the previous season and go and look at what the #1 deck was, it was Lurk. Just absurd. Now, people did start playing it at the very end of the season. If you wanted to really play for Worlds points, you could push up in Standard, but as it stood, there wasn't a ton of competition running throughout the format.
Those who kill innocents are no more than fiends.
A pretty reasonable board for us, though, now. If he wants to hook the bird into Rek'Sai, that would be fine. He says no, so he's not going to have any units now.
Death it is.
Cool. Take a fairly big hit, which is unfortunate, but we at least get to recover a little bit on board. And Defector turns up. We'll want to save Defector for next turn. The question is, like, what was his Lurk at? He was at 2, right? 3 because of Rek'Sai. So we probably can't get a Defector going. So let's just open with Vayne. We'll add the Defector to the board, and then we'll see if we can't pull off a Cataclysm or something next turn. Pike's fucking annoying. I'll give him that.
I'm not done.
Yeah, he's at +3. So if he goes Hammer Snout, that leaves us in a bit of a bind in the sense that We want to tumble the spear, but it's going to give him a free attack with the pike, and so let's just go ahead and load up the spear. Got to assume he's going to get a +1 attack this turn, and this game shouldn't come down to right now him just hitting a big spell, and so you can kind of run into problem spaces to where they just kind of go herder. I hit my lurk and now I can get in. Yeah, Ruthless Predator's a problem. Nothing we could do about that. But we were at least safe in terms of the lurks. LOL, he wasn't even big enough. He missed his lurk. What a dumb fucking deck. I was like, why is our unit still here? Why do we still have a guy? Oh, he just fucking missed his lurk. LOL, that made my day. That's good stuff right there. So let's just try and pick up width now. The thing you can do with the defector, we'll see how this turn plays out, but we can add our units. We can make a normal attack, and then you can come in after the fact and look to either tumble the defector or cataclysm the defector, and then you get an additional attack after that. We don't have the mana to do it right now, so it's not as impressive, but something that you can consider. We want to just go ahead and throw away the defector. I think this is okay. It's not really doing anything else. Holy shit, and he doesn't block. I guess that makes sense if he wants to try and overwhelm us next turn. J4 turning up right on time.
With the power of time, the possibilities are endless.
So we'll tumble. That's going to count as an attack. Counts as a scout attack, actually. Now J4 will come in and hook the dum-dum over here. It's going to feel pretty good. The big dum-dum, if you will. The Dune Breaker. Yeah, it feels good, man. Like, what? This is what blows my mind. People out here playing the Gnar version of the deck. You can't do this stuff, right? Gnar is not capable of doing this nonsense that we just did. And so I don't get it, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old, but it strikes me as pretty good. So the thing here, I think I'm just going to go ahead and block. The deck shouldn't be able to do anything, but I think this is just ultimately going to be safe. It's like if we come down and fall to 1, and then they get to drop blood in the waters or whatever, that's going to be a problem. And so let's just go ahead and get that nonsense out of the way. Warden of the Tribe should be enough. Like, I feel like in that spot we're like 99% certain to win the game by not taking, or just taking the damage from Rek'Sai and then open attacking. We do still have all the tumbles and stuff in hand, but it's just, I don't know, if you decide to play some kind of weird shit and then we're not expecting it, I feel like it probably does win you the game. Like, you know, 95% of the time, 99% of the time, but there's no real reason to risk it. I feel like we just get the victory 100% of the time, taking a little bit slower. Right, good stuff. Good stuff. Whew. Y'all go out and buy any buckets yet? Tried to lay some knowledge bombs on you all yesterday. I don't know who did it. There's at least one person out there. One other boomer out there goes, "Oh, Bust, you so spot on." I got like 9 buckets in the basement. You got so many buckets, Bust. You're so spot on. All right, though. Up against Annie Jhin. I got a little confused. I initially thought that this was the Annie Wildfire deck. I feel much better about playing against Annie Jhin. We want to come in and just find as many early plays that we can. And then fitting in any of the 2-3s we can potentially find would be spectacular. Just so good at shutting them down in the early game. But the important thing here is just width. The way that they'll typically get you, it involves a bunch of stuns coming through. And if they can't stun you, then... Or if they can stun you, but you can still block, it gives them fits. So we'll load up the spear. The Annie attack is garbage now. Oh, still bringing it, though. There you go. Think twice on that nugget. Nice shutdown. We can still Elixir of Iron on our next attack. Or on our next defense, I should say. I wonder if we should have just passed there. Like, the amount of spells this deck plays is pretty low, right? They typically play Nox and Fervors. They may play Pirouette. I don't know if they even play Pirouette anymore. We might have been able to just get away with a pass there, especially when we have all these Cataclysms in hand.
If you do not have a part to play, take one.
See, and this is the stuff you got to start to worry about. Should be able to take an amulet here and still block the stagehand and survive. Like he was trying to bring something else in. LOL. LOL. Such a dumb deck. All right, let's get one more game in. We can call it a day. Good set of battles. Good set of battles. All right, another flavor of the Warden, Gnar Neeko. So here, I just want to find our unit boosting stuff. I'm going to just take the full mulligan. We'll find something by turn 3, probably, but I want our Darkened Spears. I want our Omen Hawks. I want this early game stuff to where we're playing so much overlap between the same units. If opponent plays a 3-3 or a 4-4 Badger Bear and then we play a 5-5, it just makes it so hard for them to come in and recover. And so that's my kind of typical strategy in this space is I want our unit boosters. And the Spear's fine if we find a unit to put it on, I guess, but some big questions. And then we did find the Warden of the Tribes, not something you're typically jazzed about being in your opening hand, but you know, he'll at least turn up at some point in this game. If we draw a Warden and opponent draws 0, then we definitely have the advantage in that late game space. Alright, Precious Pet comes in. Don't find any units. Kind of sucks. Not the end of the world, but opponent's just playing bad cards anyways, so no real complaints. Alright, you gotta do the work though, Innovative Blacksmith. Currently don't have any dudes on board, don't have any real follow-up plays here. Kind of scary. I think I want to go with the Panapane. Maybe that's too greedy. We can take the amulet. Like, we have the Elixir of Iron in hand that we can use. I just envision that we're gonna have to be doing a fair amount of blocking over the course of the next few turns. And so having Tough on the Blacksmith could be useful, but the next kind of step of that is like, well, what's opponent going to play this turn? It's going to be like a random 3-3, and so the Tough isn't going to help in that space. It might be getting a little ahead, though. He definitely has board width on us, which is scary. And oh, what a shitty draw. Sorry, I'm sorry, Battle Fury. I shouldn't call you shitty, but
Croakers and crawlers,
not picking up any units here is just disaster mode. I don't think he'll attack with Anura and Fruk. Like, realistically, probably shouldn't be attacking with anything if he's got his Warden of the Tribes in hand. He is going to have, you know, bigger Wardens than us, just kind of naturally, since he's playing units that are more subtypes, but also just because he has that width that we haven't been able to generate. Come on. Okay. This has just been bonkers. Doing the best you can, I guess. This hand has just been ridiculous. Now we draw a 2-drop. right on time, my friend. Right on time.
Words make a ruler, but actions make
So let's add in J4. Like I was really wanting to be able to just send him in next turn on the open attack, take down this Tritail, but man, our hand just doesn't do enough. And the opposing deck, it shouldn't have any way to damage the J4, so he can still get in and block the units that matter.
defy my will.
Are we just dead though? To block like this? No, we're just dead? Okay. Well, that game was kind of nonsense, you know. It's kind of nonsense. What are you supposed to do? I mean, I guess we could have mulliganed differently to where we would have held on to an additional 3-drop, but it's not going to be the norm to where you just don't draw anything to play that frequently. Nonetheless, good set of games, and so, you know, I'm still pretty happy with this deck list, regardless of how that last game went. I really love all the cataclysming and tumbling and all the combos that get tied in with it between the scouts and the overwhelms and the darkened spear. Like, we got to showcase multiple different ways to really kind of come in and take advantage of these cataclysms and tumbles. And that's just something you don't get if you're playing Gnar. Like, you can still play Cataclysm, sure, but for the most part, it doesn't, like, super combo with Gnar. You can use it to quick attack challenge and get a pokey stick, and you can use it to send an overwhelm attack in with Gnar if you don't want to hit the opposing vulnerable unit. But, like, at the end of the day, it just doesn't have a ton of combos that we get by doubling up with the Vayne in here. And so, I mean, maybe they should just play Cataclysm and accept that they don't have tumbles as well, because they do have a lot of overlap in the cards, but you just don't see it out there very frequently. But nonetheless, I really like that additional power that we get out of tumbles. I think it's quite good. The things that I'm kind of uncertain about with this are, you know, I do like having a little bit more interactivity. And so I wouldn't be opposed to having like some Fleet Feather trackers. I don't feel really good about cutting things like the Petricite Broadwings. I kind of like having access to the Explorer, but like the cuts in here are pretty thin. It's like the only cards I feel like that are fairly kind of questionable in this space are the Lonely Poros. And I do like that the Lonely Poros are effective in giving you a lot of early game blockers. And so as we're playing matchups like Annie Jhin, if we're playing against Annie Ionia with the Wildfires, just anything that has like Legion Saboteurs in it, it's fantastic in those spaces, just giving you the early game blockers, but also just playing against stuff like Samira Janna and being able to block two of the opposing quick attack units with the Lonely Poro and his friend. Does quite a bit of work and just buying you time to get your overwhelms on board. And so it's tough. I also kind of in that space to where you can see how good the Frostcoat Cub can be. If it comes down early, it's a great blocker. If it comes down in the mid game, it could just be that giant overwhelmer. And you can just go full overwhelm with it to where you play the Saurion on 5 and then the Frostcoat Cub on 6 and then the Warden of the Tribes on 8. We got to do that a couple of times today, but again, giving up like the versatility of these challengers, I'm not a super fan of. I don't really want to cut out blocking Badger Bears, and the space in here is just pretty tight. And so it's tough for me to want to remove stuff in that sense. But at the end of the day, I never really wanted Champion Strength. I never really wanted Buried in Ice. We didn't get to do too much with Battle Fury, but the spaces were there for it to have some potential. And I didn't really run into any spots to where we were wanting things like Harsh Winds, which is the next kind of card you can really look to include in this deck. And so, good stuff. I'm pretty happy with how this went. I think it was a good set of games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So, hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope we maybe learned a thing or two along the way. You had a good time watching. This is Bust and me. Thank you for being here.